Welcome everyone to Health Matters. Today we have a bunch of new topics. So we are talking about the skin. I'll be sharing some tips for rosacea. Now, do you have graying hair? Are you noticing that your vision is getting worse? Maybe you've got this mineral deficiency that we will be talking about today, so stay tuned for that. I will be making a fantastic high-protein, low-carb gingerbread cake. So modeling after the famous one that I go to get a coffee sometimes, you know, that beautiful green goddess place. That's what we're making today, but it's going to be high protein, of course, without the sugar, without the carbs, and none of the bad fats. So that is coming up. So don't go anywhere. We're going to be making that up in the kitchen today, as well as I'll be sharing the best exercise for weight loss, something that you're doing with your breathing, a very specific technique, and I'm going to be sharing that with you. Now, I want you to stay tuned because throughout the show, at a certain point, a coupon code is going to pop up on your screen, and that is from our fantastic sponsors at Vitatree. We thank them for allowing and making this show possible, our Health Matters show possible in the first place. So welcome, and it's great to have you all here today. Let's talk about the weekend. So how was everybody's weekend? Here in Canada, we had our Thanksgiving weekend, and I think a lot of people may have overeaten just a little bit, maybe had a few extra drinks that they wouldn't normally have on a daily basis. Now, one of my tricks over the weekend, of course, is to have that high protein breakfast. So starting your day off with more protein that's going to keep you full and satiated throughout the day when you've got all those treats and the extra food around you. So that's one of the things that you can do. Now, if you do overeat, one of the things that you can utilize is some plant-based enzymes. So this is, I've always got my go-to bottle of my enzymes, of course, in my kitchen with my other supplements. And plant-based enzymes are great because they help to actually break down your food. So that's something that I promise that we'll share some links in the description below this video so that you can learn some more about plant-based enzymes, which is really important. Anybody who has gas, bloating, digestive issues, this is something that can really help you in terms of having some great digestion happening for you, because of course when you're gassy and bloated, you don't feel comfortable, and this can implicate other things in terms of what's going on with your gut and leaky gut syndrome, which is something that we'll talk about now as we're going to start talking about rosacea. So these are some of the common causes of rosacea, some of which you probably have never heard about. So one of them, which goes against what you've heard, is lack of natural sunlight exposure. I know anybody who's been diagnosed with rosacea, you know, if you're watching this and you're saying, yeah, this is me, the doctor told me to stay out of the sun. Well, I say the opposite, and based on the research, it's lack of natural sunlight exposure, which puts you into a more inflammatory state, and this is a problem, one of those causes for rosacea. As well as something that's very modern now in our modern world is blue light toxicity. So this is something along with those man-made EMFs. So when we're talking about Wi-Fi signals and our cell phones and our tablets and all of these things that we have in terms of our devices, this can actually increase that inflammatory response in our body and actually exacerbate that rosacea as well. When we talk about the gut, so coming back to having that healthy digestion, when we've got leaky gut and a lot of stomach problems, this is something that again will aggravate. And when we talk about the face mapping in terms of what's going on with the different channels in traditional Chinese medicine, when we look at what's going on the face, this has a lot to do with what's happening with the internal organs and this part of the body. So typically people will get that rosacea either on the red cheeks, it can be around the eyes as well, and that chronic inflammation is happening, but the cheeks are related to the stomach and what's going on with digestion, and that is where it can link back now in traditional Chinese medicine based on the meridians that run through our body back to what's going on with digestion and your gut. So definitely fixing the leaky gut is going to be very helpful for that rosacea. As well as exercise. So this is something that if you exercise, you may have an exercise-induced rosacea. This actually can happen to me sometimes after a hot yoga class and being very, very hot. My face gets like beet red. People wonder if there's anything wrong with me, but it's not. It's just that extra inflammation and that blood flow that's coming to the surface, and that's what, of course, you can experience with rosacea. Now, if it's a chronic thing, this can come and go, and it is definitely going to be exacerbated the less natural sunlight exposure you have and healthy sunlight exposure, but also it can be related to that blue light toxicity that you've got from all the artificial lights in your environment. There's another culprit here, and that is the Demodex mites. So if you don't know what that is, these are little mites that live on the skin. They can actually exacerbate that inflammation in the skin with the rosacea as well. I've got other videos on that, so you can definitely check that out if you want some more information on what specifically to do about the Demodex mites. And of course, stress. So we know that stress is always a culprit with most of chronic things that are happening in our body. That'll make our leaky gut worse as well. So that's something that you definitely want to do in terms of now tips to help with that rosacea is to deal with your stress in a natural way. Okay, so here are my 9 tips for rosacea. Tip number 1, like I mentioned, is that natural sunlight exposure. So especially when you wake up first thing in the morning, get some of that natural sunlight on your skin. It's really, really helpful to decrease that inflammatory response and helps to set up your body for that proper melatonin secretion later in the day, which is also very anti-inflammatory. So that's really important. Having that good night's sleep is important as well for your rosacea. Also, you want to have some midday sun and at sunset as well, because those healing rays are going to be really helpful for calming down that inflammation and helping to actually heal the skin. Tip number 2 for rosacea, if you are on a computer and you have to be on devices, go near an open window. That natural sunlight, so make sure you open up that window, but that natural light coming in, that photonic effect of that natural sunlight coming in is going to help to counteract some of that blue light toxicity from the artificial lights in your home or in your office. Tip number 3 is don't use your cell phone in your eyes first thing when you wake up in the morning. It's the worst thing you can do. What do most people do? When you wake up, you grab for your cell phone. Having that artificial blue light in your eyes first thing in the morning is terrible for your rosacea and for your skin and for your eyes as well. It increases your inflammation. And also after the sun has set, you don't want to have those blue light devices in your face. Tip number 4, wear your blue light blocking glasses. These can be really effective at helping to decrease that extra blue light coming into your eyes. Tip number 5 for rosacea, make sure that you are decreasing your stress. And tip number 6 is, now a little bit of research has been done on this ingredient, iron oxide. So this is often the pigment that's used, that artists use in terms of making and mixing their paints and things, but used topically along with carrot seed oil. In this study, it was found that the addition of such pigments to the sunscreens actually greatly enhances the photo protection and has that cosmetic acceptability to the skin. So being able to use it topically is something that's great, again, for rosacea, and finding products that have that is difficult. So stay tuned for that. As well as tip number 7, your healthy microbiome. So getting that healthy gut, doing regular parasite cleansing, detoxes is something that I'm definitely all about. Putting the good guys back in, those probiotics, really important for your rosacea. Remember, it's mapped. So your skin is mapping what's going on with your internal organs. So getting that healthier gut is going to have a big influence on your rosacea. Tip number 8 for rosacea, have a healthy diet, of course, so a more anti-inflammatory diet, so staying away from those PUFAs, increasing your DHA, so seafood, my favorite food group, to help to give you those anti-inflammatory effects from those omega-3 fatty acids, which is great. And eating local foods and in-season foods is also going to be very, very helpful. So we see apples being picked here. That's something that I did with the family. This weekend we had so much fun. I don't know, How many people went apple picking? It seems like everybody. It seems like nobody. If you live actually in a region that, of course, naturally grows apples, this is something that we are all doing at this time of year. And tip number 9 for rosacea is that mind-body connection. So anything on the skin, especially with chronic inflammatory issues with the skin, acne as well, there's something on that mind-body level about disliking of yourself. It has to do with your self-worth, and we know that inflammatory conditions can be related to suppressed anger as well, and everything is bubbling up to the surface. So definitely working your way through some of these mind-body things is going to go a long way to help with that rosacea. Okay, we're going over here. We're going to do some exercise, and this is known as one of the best exercises and least talked about types of exercise for weight loss. And this has to do with the type of breathing that you're doing. And so I'm going to hop on the treadmill here, and let me see if I can get this baby going. So what this is about is a certain type of breathing, and it's called intermittent hypoxic breathing. And what this is doing is it's helping to, and what the research shows is that hypoxia, so that lack of oxygenation, in this study showed increases your blood serotonin and decreases leptin levels while suppressing your appetite. So not only is this working with helping you to get some exercise, but also helping to decrease your leptin levels. If you don't know what leptin is all about, make sure you check out my other videos. That's really important to fix your leptin resistance, especially if you're looking to lose weight and you're having difficulty with the balancing of your hormones, if you've got a lot of inflammation as well. Okay, so the way that this is done, and I'll explain it first before I demonstrate it so I don't like wipe out, and yeah, that would make for a very different show. But this is something that maybe if you've practiced yoga before, you've done the breath of fire. So we're going to do the breath of fire. It means breathing just through your nose, 10 to 20 repetitions. I'll probably do 10 just for demonstration purposes today. So 10 times in and out through your nose, then you're going to exhale all of your breath out. And then you're going to hold your breath and exercise, and you're going to take as many steps as possible. And you can do this in place. So if you don't have your treadmill up and ready to go, then you're just going to walk in place, and you're going to take as many steps as possible with holding your breath. Then you're going to breathe in. So you're going to take a deep breath in, but then you're going to hold again, and you're going to continue walking. And ideally, you count how many steps you can go through, and that increases as the more you train in this hypoxic state. And then you're going to go back to regular breathing. Okay, are we ready? Should I do it on the treadmill? Yeah, I'm going to do it. Let's do it on the treadmill. You never know what can happen in a live show. So let's go. Let me set my speed. Let me get this going. So it's not too crazy difficult for me as I explain this. Okay, here we go. So we're going to do the breath of fire. And you guys need to come see me up here to do the breath of fire. Okay, are we ready? Which camera am I on here? Okay, here we go. Ready? Breath of fire. So it's in and out 10 times. Close your mouth, and it's just through your nose, and it's pretty quick. So your abdomen is going back and forth. Ready? Here we go. Then you exhale everything out and hold your breath and see how many steps. Then you take a deep breath in and hold again. And exhale. And then breathe normally through your nose. And this is now having an effect on your parasympathetic nervous system. So it's actually helping to calm and relax. This is a great exercise for anybody who has anxiety. You've got challenges with stress and panic attacks throughout the day. Just go into a quiet place and do this exercise. You don't need to do the walking part of it, but this is fantastic. And then you would repeat that again, and you would repeat that whole series 5 to 10 times. And this is a great way with that breath holding, and the longer you hold the breath, the better. Of course, do it in a safe environment where, You don't want to pass out. Don't hold it to the point where, oh yeah, I can hold it longer, and you know, you don't want to hurt yourself. But this is a great way that hypoxic training, as shown in the research, helps to burn more calories, helps with balancing the hormones, helps with your leptin levels, and is a great way to train. This is very similar, if anybody's done the cold exposure, the Wim Hof breathing and things like that, very similar to that, as well as if you train underwater. This is something that's fantastic as well. Okay, let's go back over here, and we're going to talk about some of the deficiencies that you may have and some of the symptoms that you may have, as this may be related to a certain type of mineral deficiency. And I don't know if I should give it away to you right at the beginning, but let's go through some of the symptoms, then we'll see if you can guess what it is. Okay, frequent colds and flus, memory loss, and difficulty remembering things, as well as weak bones. So calcium deposition in the bones is compromised if you have this mineral deficiency, as well as poor thyroid function. So your thyroid relies on this specific mineral. I think I have to give it away now. It's copper. So if you're low in copper, your thyroid will be compromised. You can have poor bone density because we need copper in order for that calcium metabolism to be optimized. Memory loss, the frequent colds and flus, your immune system, you need that copper, as well as skin patches and little white spots. If you do have vitiligo, this can be related to a copper deficiency as well, because copper is needed by the enzymes to produce the melanin, so that pigmentation in the skin. Graying of the hair can be related to a copper deficiency as well, and poor vision. So in terms of having proper vision, this is something important that we have and are balancing our copper levels. So here are some of the best foods for copper. And maybe you're eating these, but I find a lot of people don't eat enough of these specific foods, and I picked some of my favorites here, of course. So at the top of the list, with just 1 ounce of beef liver, is giving you 458% of the recommended daily intake for copper. Beef liver. Not everybody's going to love beef liver, so I added some other foods on the list. Oysters, 133%. Lobster, my favorite, 1 cup of lobster, 141% of the recommended daily intake of your copper every day. As well on the list, we have squid, so that calamari, which I love. Dark chocolate, another one of my favorites, will give you some copper as well. Oats are great as well. Sesame seeds, sunflower seeds, mushrooms have some copper, which is amazing, and almonds. So dry roasted almonds, 1 ounce will give you just 14% of the RDI of your copper. So I hope this is great. You're just tuning in. Thank you for tuning in today. We are going to go over, I'm going to make my famous, awesome, delicious, high protein, low carb, but fantastic gingerbread loaf. So we are going over there in just a second. But first I want to share our viewer spotlight. So each week on the show we share some positive feedback from one of our great followers, and I want to say thank you to Ariel Baby 23, and I'm guessing it's a she. Said, hello, thank you so much for your advice. It helps me a lot to understand my hormones and body better. So thank you so much, Ariel Baby. And please keep all of those positive comments coming throughout the episodes, and you may be featured as one of our viewer spotlights. So we thank you for that. Okay. We are in the kitchen. So this is my great low-carb, high-protein gingerbread cake, very similar in taste and experience to the one that you may go at that famous coffee shop. I won't mention it, but I love it. But this is without the carbs, without the sugar, without the bad fats, and there's no guilt here. And it's great, and it's high in protein, which is amazing. Okay, are we ready to get started here? So we've got our bowl. And at first I'm going to mix everything into here, but first we're starting with some eggs. So we have a 1/2 cup of butter, and we also have some eggs, and I'm going to blend that together with my, now you never know what's going to happen on a live show with making recipes with Dr. Janine, because things happen, and it's never to disappoint. It's always going to be interesting. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to blend this up. Hopefully we've got everything functional here, and no, there we go. So blending up 4 eggs with a 1/2 cup of butter, as well as some sweetener. So this is the thing, when you're using and making recipes, and this is tested and true recipe that I've made several times, ongoing, because it just is so fantastic. But now we're adding in our sweetener, and the sweetener is this one is a monk fruit sweetener, but this is a great way without the carbohydrates, and it's keto friendly to be able to get that going. So there we go. And so you're basically going to blend up your wet ingredients until that's nice and incorporated. Now we are in Canada and it's a little bit cold here, so my butter isn't as nice and melted as what I would love. But then we are also going to add our dry ingredients together. And then we're going to incorporate everything. Okay, so in here I have some coconut flour as well as some almond flour. So, and we'll be posting this entire recipe, so don't worry, you will see it as we will have it. So we've got coconut flour, we have our almond flour, we also have our 2 scoops of our protein powder. So you can either use unflavored or you can also use the vanilla flavored, and that's the whey protein isolate. So make sure that it's an isolate because I don't want you to have any tummy issues. So you'll see the full description in the video below. Now this is a secret ingredient. This is the fiber supplement. So this is psyllium seed husk. I actually used a product and opened up the capsules of that, and that was 24 capsules of the Vitamucil opened up. And this is a binder that helps to bind everything together, as well as our spices. So we have some ginger, some cinnamon, and of course our cloves, and some ground nutmeg together in there, a little bit of salt, and I'm going to incorporate all of my dry ingredients together, and of course our baking powder. You need something to make it nice and leavened and rising. I am also adding into the wet, so I'm just going to let that incorporate a little bit more. I'm adding a tablespoon of molasses into my wet mixture. Here we go. So adding this in, and I bought an organic molasses, of course, at the health food store, and that's going to give it some of that rich color as well. Now, if you're strict keto, of course, you don't have to use the molasses. You can do it without the molasses, but I like that. I've tried this recipe without the molasses, and it didn't do it for me. It just needed a little bit of that flavor for the gingerbread loaf, of that molasses, and the color as well. I like it to be a little bit on the darker side. So there we go. We incorporate that in, and then I will be adding the wet to the dry or the dry to the wet. To me, in my recipes, it doesn't really matter. I don't know. Does anybody know why they make those differences as to one into the other? I'm sure the professional bakers out there, you're either loving this or you're cringing right now as to my technique, as to what's going on with my gingerbread loaf. And then we just incorporate everything in together. Now, I sort of gauge the wetness of the batter. And because we have that psyllium seed husk, and oh, the smell, if you could smell this, if there was smell-o-vision, it's just divine. So you need a little bit of that water because remember, we put the fiber into the loaf, and that water is going to combine with that psyllium seed husk fiber, and that is going to be something that is going to give it that sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Cohesiveness to keep it all together. So you do need that water. As much as it seems like it's a little bit, it's wet enough on its own, as that psyllium seed husk is now drawing in that water, you do need to add that 1/4 cup of water in there. Okay, so there we go. And then we go into, now I've prepared my loaf pan. That's going into, with the parchment paper, that's going to go in my batter. Oh, can we see this? I'm not so good with there we go. So that's going into my loaf pan. I've preheated the oven to 350 degrees, of course, and that is all going in there, and then that is going to bake for about 35 minutes or so. Your ovens are all different, so I realize that, and forgive my, there we go. Into the oven, here we go. And with the magic of a live show, here we go, here is the loaf. So then, of course, we also have the recipe for the, and I'll pop that out really quickly. We also have the recipe for the cream cheese icing, which is also low carb. So you're just going to, and we'll share that recipe as well. And then you're going to dollop that on top. I'll just do it like this. Voila. I'll just put a little piece here on the end. Oh, yummy. And when I test these recipes at the house, I have to put I have to put signs all over everything. Don't touch, don't touch. Oh, well, let me do the whole thing. Here we go. There we go, nice. And yes, and the whole crew is going to want some, and all my kids are going to want some. So I have to put signs on everything in my test kitchen at home saying, don't eat, don't touch, don't touch. Isn't that delicious? Oh my goodness. Here we go. And then you just, I know the crew is going to be wanting a big slice. I'll take a nice slice from the middle. And there we go. So there you go. I hope that you use this recipe at home. It is so yummy, absolutely delicious. You will love it, and as much as we do, because it's all of the flavor without the guilt, and it is packed with protein. Remember, we added the protein powder in there. There's a ton of eggs in there as well, and it is fantastic. So I can't wait for you all to try that. Okay, we're going to go back over here. We are going to do a little bit of beauty, some beauty exercises. So here we go. And yeah, it's so great to be here today. Thank you for joining us. And this is our time to talk beauty. So when we talk about the muscles around the eyes, if you are experiencing the forehead wrinkles. So this is something that, one of the things that I want you to be conscientious of if you do have the lines and the forehead wrinkles, is the way that you open your eyes. If you're very expressive, you may be using the wrong muscles. So you actually could be using some of these muscles here when you open your eyes. And I don't want you to do that, because anytime you're exasperating and having a lot of facial expressions for your eyes, just use the orbicularis oculi muscle to be expressive with your eyes. So instead of doing this kind of thing, just use your eye muscles. And there's a big difference. So just practice that at home. It's one that consciously you have to think about, because I'm one of those people who uses like a lot of facial muscles for my facial expressions, which is a good thing, I think, but not so much when you're aging and you start to see some lines and wrinkles. So that's something that consciously just use that orbicularis oculi muscle around the eyes to open your eyes. Now the other thing, if you are getting a lot of lines and wrinkles on the forehead, is you may have a lot of tension in your scalp and your scalp muscles. So this is something that if you're seeing hair loss happening as well, that can be because of lack of circulation. So one of the things that I love to do when I can is to do scalp massage. Okay, so everybody, I want you to do this right now. Just get your hands in there and just massage your scalp. And there's going to be certain points on your scalp that are going to feel really tense, and you're going to be feeling a lot of pain. But this is something that you definitely want to work out that tension. And as you work out this tension in the scalp, it actually will help to relax these muscles in the forehead as well. So there you go. I want you to do all of that. You are going to love the results of relaxing things, especially for those forehead wrinkles. So there we have it. Today we talked all about rosacea. We talked about copper deficiency and some of the signs and symptoms of a copper deficiency and what to look for. Also, we made my famous gingerbread cake. I can't wait for you to try that recipe. Please let me know how it goes for you. It's absolutely delicious without the guilt, and it is high protein. And I showed you some of the best exercise, so that breathing technique, that hypoxic training for weight loss, which is amazing, great for anxiety and stress as well, which you will love. And I hope that you try that as well. Do it carefully, remember, and watch this video back a few times to really master that technique. One of my goals is to teach you how to empower yourself over the healing of your own body, mind, and spirit. Be well, everyone. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.